Yes, friends, I admit I am not wearing any makeup because, guys, I am so bloody wanking sick. I just don't have the energy. And you hear it in my voice. Hello, guys, welcome, or if you've already seen my channel before, welcome back. I am the Philadelphia Hoovian, and this is not how I usually sound. I am battling a cold that is so successful, it is taking the life, honestly, out of me. But I'm still here, anyway. All because I care about you. But forgive me for looking absolutely grotesque. But I am not wearing any makeup. And my apologies if I spray my throat with some chloroseptic spray while I'm doing this video, because I'm fighting to keep a voice. Alright guys, hello, welcome to part 2 of my Why People Hate the 11th Doctor video. In part 1, focus on more of the trivial reasons. Now we're going to get into the more substantial, like, meatier reasons. And for those of you guys who know my channel before, you know this is very ironic, coming from a person who absolutely loves the 11th Doctor. Indeed, the 11th Doctor is one of my favorite doctors, and he's also one of my favorite doctors, especially of New Who. Including, I have my favorites of Classic Who and New Who. You get my drift. You do. You get my drift. Okay, so now we're going to just jump right into some of the reasons why, and my last set of reasons. One is because with the 11th Doctor, time has taught me with him is sometimes people watch the 11th Doctor through a perception filter, where with the first two Doctors of New Who, 9 and 10, because they felt it was their first time with the Doctors, or it's the Doctors they connected with. So by the time they got to the 11th Doctor, they didn't feel any connection with him enough to the point where, with the 9th and 10th Doctor versus the 11th Doctor, they see what they want to see versus what's actually there. With 9 and 10, because they feel a deep connection with them, they want to see all the good aspects. To the 9th and 10th Doctor, with the 11th Doctor, they only see the negative aspects because that's what they want to see. For example, there was one time I was watching a video where someone was criticizing the 11th Doctor, and it had to do with Series 5, and they said with the reason why they hated the 11th Doctor, they were watching one episode, and they said it just felt silly. And I just sat there like, okay, so you forgot the farting aliens from the 9th Doctor's era, the alien on the ceiling in the long game. You pretty much forgetting all of the romantic love triangles, the annoying romantic love triangles involving teenagers of Series 1 and 2. You pretty much forgot in the Christmas Invasion when the 10th Doctor said, "It's a fighting hand." You also forgot in New Earth, Mind Warp, in New Earth when, it's beating up a samba. Oh God, it's beating up a samba. Sorry, you forgot that as well, I'm assuming. You forgot anything having to do with Cassandra. God, Cassandra. You forgot the blowjob reference in Love and Monsters. You forgot pretty much all of Runaway Bride, and you somehow ignored also in Partners in Crime the adipose with the fat walking away. Another thing that makes me is when, and this is something that happens often, that person who criticized the 11th Doctor saying about Series 5, it felt silly. Well, first of all, that person did not reference what they were talking about. They made a generalization, and this is something we 11th Doctor fans encounter from 11th Doctor haters. They say that he was bad or he did this, but they never actually say what episode it was and what they're even talking about. They give these generalizations without giving any specifics as to what they were talking about. That video was a prime example where he says that something happened in the series, or the season, in one episode that he found to be silly, but he never referenced the episode or the particular moment from the episode or how the Doctor was in general when it comes to that episode. So again, it's watching the 11th Doctor through a perception filter where you see something, you see one aspect of his character, not the full character. And that brings me to, again, when it comes to perception filters, when it comes to the negative aspects of the Doctor, where, again, people saw, okay, the Doctor is flawed. The character of the Doctor is a flawed character. But people waited to the 11th Doctor to begin to see the flaws. Whereas the 9th and 10th Doctor had all the same flaws, or sometimes worse flaws than 11, or scarier flaws. But people choose not to see them or notice them, but they wait to the 11th Doctor to fully notice them. Or with 9th and 10th Doctor, they give excuses to why their doctors are flawed, and with 11, they give no excuses whatsoever. A prime example of seeing one aspect of the 11th Doctor after ignoring many aspects of the previous Doctors was in a video I'd seen called "The Day Doctor Who Died" by The Closer Look. And the only reason I'm giving the specific video name and the reviewer's name is because I think that is a genuinely good video that was very well done. I simply do not agree with anything in it, nor do I agree with one thing that was possibly said. Literally do not agree with any of the video, but I can stand here and say, even when I do not agree, it still is a damn good video. Well done, Closer Look. I just simply agree with absolutely none of that video and nothing that was said. First of all, that video did the dangerous thing I often see of giving objective viewpoints on a subjective subject matter. And be very wary of people who use their term of being an expert at something to give you an objective overview to a subjective situation, because that can be dangerous because it can be inaccurate. But also with that video, we did was he took scenes from the 9th Doctor era, for episodes like Rose, and took a bit of it and compared it to scenes from the episode Vampire in Venice and Robots of Sherwood from the 11th and 12th Doctor era. And with the point he was trying to make with those videos, with those segments he got, was how the 9th Doctor was a nice and polite person versus the 11th and 12th Doctor, who in all essentials were not very good at all and were actually quite horrible. Again, the 9th Doctor is polite and nice. The 9th Doctor is polite and nice. No, this is no offense to the 9th Doctor. He had his good moments, of course, but he had moments where he was just insensitive and a dick. That's what he was. He was insensitive and a dick. But either way, but also what that scene did was it showed how subjective the idea of polite and nice really are to us as a fan base. Because I remember that one segment, that scene he mentioned of the Doctor being nice and polite, I was thinking, I don't think this is the Doctor being nice and polite with 9. It seems more like he's being an oblivious dick. And there was another person who noticed the same thing in the video. They're like, no, it just showed how he was kind of oblivious and kind of a dick. But also, what that showed is, by taking snippets, you took some, even if that was your interpretation of a nice and polite, how much that scene took one moment of the 9th Doctor and compared to a negative moment of the 11th and 12th Doctor, if those could even be perceived as negative moments. What I mean by that is, with the 11th Doctor, he somehow ignored the entire overview of that, which is simply, in that scene, the 11th Doctor realizes he said the wrong thing at Rory's stag night. He admitted it. He realized afterwards, showing how it was an unconscious thing on his part, but the rest of the episode was him bringing Rory aboard so that the Doctor would not wreck the relationship between Amy and Rory, the way the 9th Doctor was a key component to breaking up the relationship between Rose and Mickey, being a key factor on it being broken up. Somehow, he ignored all the good aspects of the 11th Doctor's episodes and only honed in on a potential negative aspect to his, but then you honed in on the good aspect of the Ninth Doctor's episode, if that can even be regarded as a nice moment, and ignored all the bad or all the negative repercussions of the Ninth Doctor of that situation, which is how the Ninth Doctor was, objectively speaking, just giving the facts, essential to Mickey and Rose being broken from each other, and then ends up ruining Mickey's life by accident. But when he comes back, he doesn't even care very much because he calls him Mickey the Idiot. He's just not very sympathetic. And then the Ninth Doctor ultimately did the same thing to Captain Jack that Mickey did to him in the first episode. So he's no better than Mickey. The Ninth Doctor did very brave and heroic things, but so did the 11th Doctor. They both were just flawed in their own ways. But people waited till the 11th Doctor era to notice these flaws, and then left out all the rest when it came to the 9th and 10th Doctor eras. That's why, even though I'm not crazy about the 9th or 10th Doctors, I'm still always quick to understand why people love them or point out all the good that they did, even when I do not like the bad, because I understand that there's still an overview happening over here. And mind you, with the 9th and 10th Doctors, it's not their flaws I get annoyed with. It's when they don't identify their flaws or own their flaws and then realize I was wrong to do this or this. I'm going to apologize directly to the person I did it to. It's not that you're flawed with the Doctor or any character. It's when you do not acknowledge the flaw in the proper way. That's when it's like, okay. That's what it ultimately is. But now you know why I'm a little iffy about this sort of situation here. Because again, people watch 11 through a perception filter, like with the 12th Doctor sometimes, where they watch him also through a perception filter, where they only see the bad and they ignore the good that's going on there as well. And that's all it ultimately is. People waited till the 11th Doctor to notice the flaws that were actually in the Doctor all along, including the 9th and 10th Doctor and the Doctors of classic Doctor Who. Now, forgive me, but must get a book, because here comes my last point. My last point as to why I think people actually do hate the 11th Doctor is because he actually was the Doctor. Hear me out. So I'm going to explain. I promise I'm going to explain. And I'm going to explain by use of a book called Doctor Who, The Unfolding Text. This is a book I was recommended to read. But it's going to take me a long time to review it because it's a super long book that is quite dense, and I'm going to take a while to get through it all, but I will one day do a review of it. But still, right now I'm just going to give you an overall concept of what it comes to when it comes to the knowledge or the information of the Doctor. Okay, now when it comes to the Doctor, this is what Verity Lambert said. The original conception was that here was a total mystery, and he was not predictable in any kind of way. He was irascible, or inescapable. It's words you have a hard time, pronounced different ways. Irascible, there's a third way. He was irascible as well as being kindly. He was dangerous, and there was this childlike, I repeat, childlike quality about him as well. That unpredictability was very much part of him, and I had seen William Hartnell do two things that really impressed me. One was a really awful, nasty sergeant in the Army game, and then Sporting Life, where he was very vulnerable, and I thought if we could just get that combination, so that just as you were getting cross with Doctor Who, he suddenly turns and is gentle, and suddenly you feel that this old man is vulnerable. That's one aspect of him. Then another bit about the Doctor. The normal, the similar, and the identifiable, estranged by the different. This was to be the initial definition of Doctor Who. Now, I'm going to give you another quote about him. Okay, when it comes to the Doctor, thematically the program describes the Doctor as difference, mystery, absence in his absence. Alright. Now, to some extent, the Doctor's threat to the process of classification and naming was, as Lambert saw it, in his conscientiously anti-establishment character, which was lost, she believes, during the Pertwee era. But she said, and as we have seen, she chose William Hartnell for the part as the first Doctor to represent ambiguity and contradiction. Now, I'm going to give you one more quote, I believe, when it comes to the Doctor's character, about why William Hartnell was chosen to be the first Doctor, but also about the school teachers, Ian and Barbara. Again, sorry for my voice. In things other than the mystery of the Doctor, the discourse of schoolteacher as hero often prevailed. Ian Chesterton was conceived as a hero, not simply because William Hartnell was old and unable to play an action lead, but also because, as Verity Lambert explained, the Doctor was in some ways an irresponsible and childish anti-hero. There you have it. But when it comes to this, like the audience, a dominant discourse of the program was to lead him away from an immature solipsism guided by the parent teachers to a galactic responsibility. The lack in his character, represented in the first episode, where Verity Lambert puts it, in a total irresponsible way, he takes away these two people, which is Ian and Barbara, that he knows he has no means of actually getting back again, is redressed by the good that he does in the universe through the agency and persuasion of the school teachers. The Doctor, by all essentials, represents almost a moral ambiguity sometimes, where he has a darkness to his nature that gets forgiven through all the intense goodness in his nature. That is, in all essentials, the 11th Doctor. A childishness, but also a maturity. A lightness, but a darkness. Two contradictions constantly at bay and competing with each other within one character. That is the Doctor, and technically speaking, that is the 11th Doctor down to a T. So when people choose not to love the 11th Doctor, the question then becomes, did you ever know what the character of the Doctor was to begin with? Or did you only see the Doctor through what you wanted to see him as, but never saw him for what he fully was? And do you want the Doctor to be wrapped around your identity, than ever deciding to wrap your knowledge around him? Basically allowing him to be himself and see him for what he is, and wrapping yourself around his identity instead of forcing him to be wrapped around yours, which are impossible expectations because he does not know you, but you know him. Are you sure you know the character of the Doctor, or do you know only what you think the Doctor should be, but is that ever what the Doctor actually is? Because if you look at the 11th Doctor, he is walking contradiction, like the 12th Doctor can be sometimes walking contradiction. But maybe that was the Doctor the whole time. And for me, I said before, it's not the flaws of the Doctor that I fear. It's when the Doctor never realizes the flaws to begin with, or never fully learns from them, or learns in the right way. That's why I love the 11th Doctor. He is flawed, but he knows it. He owns it. And because he knows he's flawed, and he confronts his flaws, he owns his flaws. They do not own him. And that's what I loved about him so much. Again, this is a purely subjective video, not objective, just to have a discussion. What do you think? Do you think people have different reasons why they, of course, hate the 11th Doctor? Which I'm sure they probably do. I'm just having a discussion because I felt like having one. Again, purely subjective video, not objective. This is not like a set truth. This is me giving my perspective on something. But again, perspectives are not fact. Everything is all just theory and fun to talk about. So, what do you feel about this? Do you feel differently? Again, just here to start a discussion. Thank you guys so much. Again, sorry for the voice and the fact that I refuse to wear makeup today. But by God, I am really sick. Alright, I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye, guys.